Have you ever felt like you've been somewhere before, even though you swear you've never stepped foot there in this life? Ever met someone for the very first time, but felt like you've known them forever? Or maybe you've had a dream so vivid, so painfully real, that waking up felt like losing a life you didn't even know you had. Some call it déjà vu, others call it coincidence. But what if it's neither? What if those moments aren't random glitches in your brain, but fragments of something bigger, something older? This is where the theory of reincarnation comes in. The idea that your soul has walked this earth many times before. Different faces, different lives, different lessons, and here's where things get interesting. Across history, in almost every culture, this idea wasn't fringe, it was normal, until somewhere along the way, parts of the world stopped talking about it. Some researchers believe early Christian thought might have been more open to the soul's pre-existence than people think. Others strongly disagree. The debates are centuries old, but in the middle of them are little clues, strange verses, forgotten writings, and mysterious overlaps with beliefs from other civilizations. Whether you see them as hints or coincidences, well, that's for you to decide. Let's start with the most famous example. In the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus says about John the Baptist, "And if you are willing to accept it, he is Elijah who was to come." Some people read that and move on. Others stop and think, wait, does that mean a prophet from the past returned in a new body? Or was it purely symbolic? Then there's Jeremiah 1-5. "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you." A beautiful line, but also a curious one. How do you know someone before they exist, unless their soul existed before? In the early centuries, Christian thinkers like Origen actually wrote about the soul having a life before birth. He didn't describe it exactly like modern reincarnation, but it was still an idea that suggested our story didn't start at birth. Centuries later, church councils debated such ideas, and over time, they faded from mainstream Christian teaching. Whether that was theological refinement or a shift in priorities is something historians still argue about today. While that conversation cooled in the West, other cultures kept the fire alive. In Hinduism, the cycle of rebirth, samsara, is tied to karma, where your actions shape your next life. In Buddhism, reincarnation is part of the path toward ultimate liberation, the end of suffering. The Druids, the Egyptians, the ancient Greeks all had some form of the belief that life was not a one-time event, but part of a repeating cycle. In these traditions, reincarnation wasn't frightening. It was as natural as the seasons. And then there's the modern evidence. Case studies that make even the most committed skeptic tilt their head. Take the story of a child in India who recalled being murdered in another life and led his family to a village he'd never visited. He identified the house he claimed to have lived in, described events, and even named the man he said had killed him. Villagers confirmed details matched an unsolved case. Or the boy in the United States who, at just 2 years old, began talking about being a World War II fighter pilot. He named the aircraft carrier, the type of plane, and the name of a friend from his squadron. Years later, records showed that a pilot matching his description had indeed died in the exact way the boy described. Psychiatrist Dr. Ian Stevenson spent decades investigating these kinds of stories. He documented thousands of cases across the world, often where children remembered names, locations, and events they couldn't have known in their current life. Skeptics argue these could be coincidences, false memories, or the result of suggestion. Believers see them as cracks in the wall between lives. Now here's where it gets personal. If reincarnation is real, you've done this before. You've been here before, not just as you, but as countless versions of you. And maybe, just maybe, that explains the patterns you can't escape. Why certain fears grip you for no reason. Why certain people feel like home the second you meet them. Why you're drawn to places, skills, or time periods you've never studied but somehow know. Some say life is a test. Others say it's a school. If it's a school, then reincarnation means you keep taking the class until you pass. You can skip the homework if you want, but the lesson will wait for you in the next round. So here's the uncomfortable question. What if the challenges you keep facing now are leftovers from your last life? What if the people who irritate you the most now are the same souls who pushed your buttons before? And what if the greatest love of your life is someone you've met 100 times before in 100 different bodies? That's the beauty and the terror of this idea. It says that death is not the end, which means you don't get to escape your own growth. Whatever you run from will find you again. And whatever you heal will never have to follow you. Reincarnation doesn't just stretch life into infinity, it stretches responsibility too. Because if your soul keeps coming back, the life you're living now isn't just for today. It's shaping the path you'll walk in the next chapter and the one after that. So think about it. If you knew for sure you'd be back, would you still live the same way? Would you treat people the same way? Would you chase the same goals? Or would you finally face the lesson you've been avoiding for lifetimes? Maybe you've been here before. Maybe you'll be here again. And maybe, just maybe, you're here now for a reason you've been carrying for centuries. This is everlasting realism, where we don't just talk about what's true, we talk about what could be. And sometimes, that's the more important question.